Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler Season 1, Episode 25. Mu Chen's gaze remained fixed on the crown of the black tree. At that location, he could vaguely see a gray figure. However, he felt something was off, as the gray figure did not show any signs of life. What exactly is that? Mu Chen frowned. Uncle Duan, I'll have to trouble you with something. Mu Chen's eyes flashed and he gently whispered, "What orders do you have, little lord?" Duan Wei immediately replied. Mu Chen approached over and said something besides Duan Wei's ears. When the latter heard this, his face instantly changed and turned pale. "Little lord, it's too dangerous." Duan Wei earnestly attempted to persuade him. He did not know why Mu Chen wanted to do such a dangerous act. This was the nest of the devouring spirit bees. If they were surrounded, there was no way out. "Uncle Duan, I know what I'm doing. Trust me," Mu Chen whispered. The boy had an exceptionally serious expression. Not even the slightest recklessness could be seen within his black eyes as they twinkled coldly. Seeing Mu Chen insisting on this, Duan Wei could only let out a wry smile. He gestured towards the few men beside him and swiftly departed. Mu Chen also lowered his body when he noticed them heading away. He hid his body within the bushes and had his eyes fixed on the giant black tree. After approximately 10 minutes since Duan Wei and the others departed, a commotion rang out from a distance. A dozen or so spiritual beasts were driven out of the forest and headed over this way. The silence here was destroyed by the dozen or so spiritual beasts. Numerous bloody red lights lit up and the air began to tremble. Buzzing sounds instantly rang out as the countless devouring spirit bees surged out. They formed into a black cloud and rushed towards the spiritual beasts. Only now did the fleeing spiritual beasts discover the crisis in front of them. They instantly roared out crazily and turned around. However, as they bolted away, the black cloud swiftly chased after them. As the devouring spirit bees left, the giant black tree became completely bare. Although there were still some devouring spirit bees remaining, they were not a concern without their number advantage. Mu Chen's body instantly charged out at this moment. He directly headed towards the giant black tree and went straight towards the treetop like a nimble monkey. Along the way, a couple devouring spirit bees tried to interfere with him. However, they were easily taken care of by him. Mu Chen's speed was extremely fast. Within 10 breathes, he had leapt onto the treetop. The treetop was rather spacious, but was quite hidden. The branches which stretched out covered its secrets. Because of the time constraints, Mu Chen did not dare to act slowly. His eyes instantly looked towards the inside of the tree. He could see a figure actually sitting amongst the weeds. However, this figure did not have the slightest hint of life because it was a skeleton. Moreover, a tattered gray outfit was on the surface of its body. Mu Chen stared in surprise at the skeleton on the treetop. He carefully approached it and waited to see if there was any change before feeling relieved. As he approached the skeleton, he discovered that half of the bones were charred. Signs of withering seemed to be on the charred bones. It seemed that this skeleton had suffered a heavy injury while he was still alive. Mu Chen's eyes glanced through the surroundings and stopped at the bone palm in front. Vague writing seemed to be on it. He waved his sleeves and swept the leaves apart as his vision fixed onto that location. "My name is Tian Chong. I am from the Bug Spirit clan. As I was traveling, I found traces of a Nine Netherworld Bird. Greed surged through me, and I attempted to get it. After many pains, I finally obtained my wish. However, only then did I discover..." The writing afterwards became blurry. However, Mu Chen could see words of hatred in the end. This made him stunned, and his heart shivered. So this person also discovered the traces of the Nine Netherworld Bird, and he nearly succeeded in obtaining it. But at the last moment, some sort of misfortune occurred. "Bug Spirit Clan," Mu Chen muttered to himself. He had heard faintly that there was a rather strange clan in the Great Thousand Worlds who manipulated millions of bugs within the world. Others named them as spirit bug users. They had extremely secretive means and would be troublesome if they were provoked. Mu Chen did not imagine that one of them would die here. Mu Chen pondered for a moment. Then his eyes turned their attention to the other bone palm of the skeleton. He noticed a black flute, which was a couple inches long within the bone palm. Various insect patterns were engraved on the flute, and a subtle flute sound rang out from the flute whenever a breeze appeared. This item, could it be a spirit bug flute? Mu Chen seemed to be lost in thought. It was said that the spirit bug users would all have a spirit bug flute that they used to control the spirit bugs that they raised. Could the black flute in front of him be that item? So when I heard the subtle flute sound, it was because of the breeze entering this spirit bug flute. It seems that the devouring spirit bees formed their nest here because of the flute sound as well. Mu Chen suddenly realized this and immediately let out a cry of praise. These spirit bug users sure have a rather peculiar method. Senior, since you have already died, this young one will inherit your relic. Mu Chen bowed down toward the skeleton. He carefully took the black flute away from it. If he was not mistaken, the spirit bug flute should be able to summon the devouring spirit bees. However, he cannot use it recklessly. After all, he was not a spirit bug user. If he really summoned the devouring spirit bees over, and he failed to control them, he was simply asking for trouble. Although that's the case, Mu Chen was not willing to return back empty-handed. This item would eventually be eroded through years of weathering. Instead of letting this item get ruined, it might have a bit of use within his hands. Just after Mu Chen collected the spirit bug flute and was about to leave, he suddenly glanced at the gray outfit of the skeleton. He hesitated for a moment before praying to the bones. Afterwards, he touched the tattered gray clothes. Because of the years of erosion, the gray outfit was reduced to ashes when Mu Chen touched it. Two transparent bottles appeared under the bones. It was obvious that the bottles were not made from any ordinary material. Even after all these years, they were still well preserved. Mu Chen picked up the two bottles. Within the bottles, there was a black liquid. However, Mu Chen did not know the effects of the black liquid and pondered for a moment. He carefully opened the bottle cover, and a strange aroma drifted out. The moment the strange aroma was released, Mu Chen felt the giant black tree tremble for a moment. Then he noticed that many devouring spirit bees drilled out from the tree trunk and headed towards the treetop with scarlet eyes. Seeing this, Mu Chen was shocked. He immediately shut the cover of the bottle and quickly placed it within his mustard seed bracelet. The aroma seemed to have an effect of attracting devouring spirit bees. I can't remain here any longer. Mu Chen did not dare to stay here any longer when he noticed the commotion. The spiritual beast that Duan Wei and the others had driven out would not pin down the devouring spirit bees for long. If he did not leave now, there was no escape route for him when he was surrounded by the devouring spirit bees. Thank you, Senior. Mu Chen cupped his hands towards the skeleton. He did not remain at this place any longer and jumped off the giant black tree. Then he quickly rushed to the forest. After passing through the forest, he stopped suddenly and waited for Duan Wei and the others to come. Suddenly, a fierce wind erupted above his head, and he was startled. His toes touched the ground and he dashed backwards. Who? A hint of coldness flashed through Mu Chen's eyes. He lifted his head and saw a familiar figure standing on the tree trunk in front of him. That figure was staring at him with indifferent eyes. It was actually Liu Mubai. Liu Mubai stared coldly at Mu Chen and stretched out his hand as he faintly said, "It seems that you're really lucky. You can find decent items wherever you go. So what did you get this time above the treetop? Hand it over." Under the tree shades, Mu Chen stared at Liu Mubai as Liu Mubai stared down from above at him. He did not expect to encounter him at this place. It seems that the Liu territory's men were also separated by the devouring spirit bees swarm earlier. Moreover, from this guy's appearance, he also noticed the subtle flute sound and came over. Unfortunately, he reacted a step too slow, as Mu Chen was there first. Since Liu Mubai wanted to make him hand over the item, Mu Chen gently let out a mocking smile. "This isn't the Northern Spiritual Academy. If I were to kill you, it will not cause any trouble. Therefore, I hope that you can accept reality right now. I think that with your personality, you would not do any foolish and desperate attempts." Seeing Mu Chen ignoring him, a touch of darkness surged through Liu Mubai's eyes as he slowly spoke. "I was not afraid even when Shui Tu was chasing after me. Just who do you think you are, Liu Mubai?" Mu Chen smiled and replied, "That idiot, Shui Tu, was probably unlucky and met with the silver-horned panther dragon within the northern spiritual field, right? You're quite lucky since that kind of thing occurred." Liu Mubai had a hint of ridicule within his eyes. They had actually investigated it after the incident occurred and found traces of a fight within the silver-horned panther dragon's territory. At that location, scraps of Shui Tu's clothes were found there. This discovery made them understand why Mu Chen was able to escape from Shui Tu. So since Shui Tu died against the silver-horned panther dragon, how is it related to you? You are still naive if you think that you can frighten me with this. Liu Mubai smiled coldly. They had predicted the events that had happened on that day. However, they thought that the appearance of the silver-horned panther dragon was just a coincidence. They did not imagine that a boy had meticulously calculated all these steps in order to send Shui Tu to death. Mu Chen smiled. He did not get hot-headed and argue with Liu Mubai. He was fond of the individuals that tried to act smart. Right now, will you hand over the item to me by yourself? Liu Mubai extended his hand out again. However, a faint spiritual energy surged out faintly through his palms this time. Mu Chen gave a slight smile and shook his head. The instant that Mu Chen shook his head, Liu Mubai's eyes turned completely cold. He swooped straight down like a hawk chasing its prey, and the spiritual energy within his palms mercilessly gushed out towards Mu Chen. Mu Chen's toes inserted itself into the leaves. He lifted the leaves into the sky and retreated quickly. The fiery red spiritual energy gushed out and directly shattered the leaves dancing in the sky. Liu Mubai's body was like lightning and his hands were like claws. The fiery red spiritual energy emitted a boiling fluctuation as it headed straight towards the vital points of Mu Chen's chest. When Mu Chen noticed the fierce offensive of Liu Mubai, his eyes also turned cold. A dark black spiritual energy surged out from his fist and a limitless death seal appeared. A punch was blasted out. The limitless death seal flashed on the surface of Mu Chen's fist. As the black spiritual energy wrapped around it, an overbearing fluctuation was unleashed. Mu Chen's fist collided with Liu Mubai's sharp claws. A sound rang out, and a wave of spiritual energy that could be seen with the naked eye spread out. This made the leaves under their feet blast out into the air. Mu Chen's body trembled slightly and retreated a few steps backwards. His eyes remained fixed on Liu Mubai. This guy really had reached the spiritual rotation stage. Spiritual movement stage late phase? Liu Mubai's body also shook for a bit, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. When Mu Chen was fighting against Liu Yang, he had just reached the spiritual movement stage middle phase. He never imagined that Mu Chen would be able to reach the spiritual movement stage late phase after such a short period of time. This cultivation speed wasn't slow at all. Moreover, what surprised him the most was Mu Chen blocking one of his attacks head-on. Although Mu Chen did not gain the upper hand, it was still extremely surprising for him to be able to fight against him like this, with the strength of a spiritual movement stage late phase. You have a bit of skill. No wonder you also had this annoying appearance. I originally planned on making you lose completely in a formal competition during the fight for the space in the 5 great academies. However, I really dislike you, so it seems that I shouldn't give you that chance, Liu Mubai said heartlessly. Then he took a step forward, and the fiery red spiritual energy gushed out from within his body. This spiritual energy pressure directly enveloped Mu Chen. From his appearance, it seems that he really planned on killing Mu Chen here. Swish! Liu Mubai did not hesitate at all as his spiritual energy gushed out to shape-shift his palms into claws. The fiery red spiritual energy seemed to have formed into a shape of a fire eagle, and the claws combined with the fire eagle as he swept towards Mu Chen fiercely. Seeing this powerful offensive come from Liu Mubai, Mu Chen did not directly confront it again. Liu Mubai was indeed stronger than him. If he was to face him directly, it would fit Liu Mubai's intention. Mu Chen's toes touched the ground, and he jumped back vigorously. As he retreated backwards, a dark black light flashed on his fingertips. Liu Mubai immediately chased after him. He let out a sneer as he watched Mu Chen constantly retreating and dodging his fierce attacks. Weren't you always so prideful? Why are you dodging here and there like a loser dog now? Mu Chen's reply was a sneer as well. However, he still did not plan on engaging in a frontal confrontation. Let's see where you can hide. Liu Mubai's eyes flashed and he lunged out. As the dense spiritual energy burst out, his claws turned into fists and he blasted out a punch from above towards Mu Chen. Hawk Inferno! A fiery red spiritual energy gushed out like flames when the punch was fired out. The winds formed by the fist within the flames erupted out like a matchless firehawk. It completely surrounded all paths of retreat for Mu Chen. Mu Chen suddenly stopped and his eyes remained fixed on the fierce offensive that was approaching. In an instant, he placed his hands together and a cold cry came out from his mouth. Form array! The air within him shook slightly when the words were shouted out. Beams of spiritual energy erupted out from the air and actually binded Liu Mubai's 4 limbs. This sudden binding made Liu Mubai's body stiffen. He immediately let out a hint of surprise. Spiritual array? However, the surprise only lasted for a moment. He already noticed how weak the binding ability of this spiritual array and let out a sneer. So it's only a tiny spiritual array. Boom! A dense spiritual energy gushed out and severed the beams formed by spiritual energy. Liu Mubai's offensive remained unchanged and he fiercely blasted it towards Mu Chen. However, the momentum of his offensive had weakened due to the tiny spiritual energy. This time, Mu Chen did not continue to dodge Liu Mubai's fierce offensive. A hint of chill gushed out from his black eyes. The dark black spiritual energy surrounded Mu Chen's arms, and he immediately charged forward. His hands were placed together, and two limitless death seals emerged quickly from between his palms. So you finally won't escape? Seeing this, a murderous intent surged through Liu Mubai's eyes. Above the winds formed by the punch, the fire hawk that was devouring the fiery red spiritual energy let out an abnormal fluctuation as it blasted out towards the center of Mu Chen's chest. Limitless death seal! With a low cry, a sound rang out from within Mu Chen's heart. The spiritual energy within his body flowed through his meridians like a flood. His palms were drawn back in towards his body, and then it exploded outwards. The two limitless death seals let out a domineering glow within the center of his palms. Under the two vicious and cold gazes, the fist and palm swept over and finally collided with each other. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.